Hi, my name is Sally Bohls. I'm going to talk to you today about some basic adjustments on the oboe. Just to give you a heads up of who I am the oboe portion of vocal majority, and we have an awesome time doing what we do. And sometimes we know what we're talking about. Hopefully, that's most of the time. But I get a lot of questions on the basic adjustments, so I'm going to take you through those today with video, and we have some. I'll point out some details to you that will help. So grab a chair and some popcorn and an oboe, and let's go to it. All right, so we have the oboe here. We also have a diagram up there that we can reference if we need to. But the main object, I think, that you have to understand of adjusting an oboe is that you need the top joint to have complete suction. So when all of the keys are closing, no air is leaking out anywhere. The other is on the bottom. You also need suction, but you have to understand that if something, let's say my low notes aren't playing, your student comes and says that to you, I can't get my low D out. Okay, it's probably not something down here, it's probably something up here that is wrong. So you need to always start at the top of the oboe and work your way down, because as you know, every note comes out the next hole down as you're closing. So if something up here is leaking, then obviously stuff down here, it can still be completely adjusted, but it still won't play. So you always need to start at the top and work your way down. Now, the other thing is, excuse me, before you start checking any adjustments, we have two bridge keys right here at the where the top joint meets the middle joint, and one on the right and one on the left. The one on the right is the one where the house tops on the joint need to be absolutely lined up, because this mechanism right here helps control the opening and closing of these two small keys. Okay, so if this is not lined up, let's say it's slightly off, then all the adjusting that you do is for naught, because the minute somebody actually puts it together and lines it up, then all your adjustment is off again anyway. The one on the, and this is when you're looking at the back of the oboe, when the back of the oboe is facing you, it's the one that's on your right that needs to be lined up. The one on the left, they basically just need to touch, because it's one that helps make the D trill key work. So they just need to touch. Sometimes they both line up. As you can see, this one is slightly off, but it's not going to hurt anything still. The one on the right is the one that needs to be absolutely lined up. Otherwise, like I said, our adjustment here won't do us any good. Okay, so things you need. I have two sizes of screwdrivers. One is slightly larger than the other. I'm going to start with the smaller one, because obviously if you have a screwdriver that you use that is too big, you're not going to be able to get into the little reed cap, not reed cap, excuse me, the little screw cap that's on here. So let me say this also. If you have keys, if you have screws that run parallel to the oboe, those are anchor screws. They are holding keys onto the oboe. They should be screwed all the way in, not tightly. You don't want to crank them in, but they should be screwed all the way in. These that are anchoring keys, now this one of course is perpendicular, but those are anchor screws. They're at these little pivot joints. All of these guys like this, they all need to be screwed in all the way. Like I said, you don't want them to be tightly screwed in, but you don't want the head of the screw to protrude past, okay? Because that's when keys start falling off the oboe and fun things start to happen. So we need, those are anchor screws that hold keys on. Then you have all of these that are perpendicular to the oboe. Those are adjustment screws, and you need to be really careful with those, because you may be trying to adjust one thing, and then you may get that one thing adjust, but you've unadjusted 25 other things. So I'm going to talk you through all of that here in a minute. Also, let's say your student's oboe's worked and it's been fine, and now all of a sudden something's not working. Make sure that when they are putting the oboe together and taking it apart, that they've got an adequate amount of lubricant of some sort, cork grease on here, so they don't have to shove and push and turn and twist. And because what they're going to do is their hands, no matter where you put your hand on the instrument, you're going to come in contact with some adjustment screws. And over a period of time, that in itself can make your adjustments go out. So they need to make sure that the instrument is not over lubricated, but that it goes together and they don't have to shove and twist and pull. Okay. They'll also bend things if it's not um, got cork grease on there to help them put it together. Okay, so we've talked about anchor screws that are in all these little pivot joints. They just need to be screwed in. I would screw them in and maybe back it off a quarter of a turn so that you don't make it bind. That's all these, like I said, these little pivot anchor screws right here. Now, these other screws, that's another thing. So, things you're going to need, like I said, you need the screwdriver itself that fits into, and these have little protector edges around them. And if you get a screw driver that's too big, then you're gonna bang up and cause marks and stuff on the outside because you can see the screw fits down into a little cup type thing. So make sure your screwdriver is the right size. Then I use ungummed cigarette papers. You certainly don't want the gummy part on there for it to get wet. So I cut a small piece off of a piece of cigarette paper. You can see, okay. And what I do is I cut off a little strip and then I cut one side of it to a point so I can put that under to check the tension of the opening and closing of the key. Okay, so remember I said we're going to start at the top of the oboe and we're going to work all the way down. So I'm checking octave keys first. So the very top thing on the oboe is the key that opens and closes when I do my side octave key. So when I'm talking about tension on a key, it can't be like free moving like this. It can't be so tight that I can't pull it out. It needs to be a moderate amount. And then the way that we check that in the end is we check the suction on the joint. So I'm going to press the key and I'm going to put the cigarette paper underneath that and let go. And then I'm going to pull and make sure, and you might check kind of at the top and at the bottom, you're making sure that the cork is placed in there well. So this one, it's like evenly to be able to close all the way around. So that one is. The next key, just follow your way down. The next is the one that opens the bottom one, bottom thumb key in the back. So again, I'm going to press it and it'll open the key. And I'm going to put the cigarette paper underneath and I'm going to check for the tension again, which is very nice. The next one is the second octave key, and it never opens very much, but this one is okay. And if that's too, you can adjust the pitch. If I open this guy up some, so when you're trying to figure out which screw goes to which key, obviously our side octave key doesn't really have any screws that affect it other than this one. So if it's too far in, then this one might not be closing all the way. So if that is the case, then I would put my screwdriver in and I would loosen that a little bit and check it again to make sure. Then for the thumb, the bottom thumb, it's the one right over the key, okay, because that affects the opening. For this guy, there is a screw here in the back, and I'm going to loosen it just a little bit so I can make the key open just a little bit higher. And then I'm going to scoot the paper, she said, underneath. Yep, hold on. All right. I just screwed it all the way in. And if you don't want it to open, then just screw it all the way down. Otherwise, open it up a bit. So I'm pressing the key and I'm scooting the paper under, and the tension is just fine. I would make this open where enough where you can get the paper under there. If you can't get the paper under there, just counterclockwise and open that up just a little bit. Then the next one's down. These are our little trill keys, our D and our C sharp trill keys. You do need to check those because a lot of times that key this will bind and you'll press these down, but they won't close all the way. And if this screw that's holding this rod on is too tight, then these will not work. So you need to make sure again, that you put it under and let go, and then pull out and make sure it's closing. Same thing for the bottom one. I'm going to put it under there, let go, and make sure it's closing. So you want to make sure this mechanism, and once again, that is what this bridge key right here helps to control, is our D trill key that's right down here. Makes our top one open. Okay, so we have checked side octave, thumb octave, bottom thumb octave, top, back octave, and we've checked both of our trill keys so far. Now we get into the black magic portion of things. So you have 3 big keys. Obviously, they have to close all the way down, but they also control the opening and closing of these guys. So what you need to do is check your 3 big keys first. So I'm putting this under the half hole key, top finger. And these, there are certain, on the oboe, there are those keys that when they are at rest, they're laying, they're touching, their pad is touching the oboe, and you have to press another key for them to open. Then there are keys like these guys that at rest, they are open and you have to press them to close them. So when I'm checking the tension on these, I need to put the paper under there and close it. And don't press down hard, only press down with the amount of pressure that you would if you were playing the instrument, and it should not come out. Okay? Then I'm going to check the A key. And again, don't shove down, just lightly press on it, because you don't mush with your fingers when you play. And then I'm going to check the G key, same thing. So these 3 are closing when I press them down. If not, the key that the screw that adjusts that is this guy in the back. So you have this mechanism right here. And if for some reason they were not closing, I would need to check with this screw right here and make sure it's not too far in. All right, now that's the first screw that would affect those. Now, this is where we have to get into talking about these 2 little guys. So first thing, again, make sure you're right. If you're looking at the back of the oboe, right bridge key is lined up. So the thing that makes these work is if I press my F sharp key, you have this little curved key that comes around like this and touches the key that is actually the G sharp A flat key. So if I press this down, do you see these 2 little keys right here? Okay, it's the 2 on here. If you're looking up here, here's your 3 big keys, and it's these 2 little ones right here are the ones that you're looking at. So I'm going to press, I have to press my F sharp key and leave it pressed. When I do that, do you see these open? These 2 little ones open. So I'm going to leave it pressed. Then I'm going to slip my paper under the little one, and I'm going to let go. And it should drag. And then I'm going to do the same thing under the second one. These are the ones that sandwich your A key. This one is a little tighter than the other one, and I'd rather have them match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to this. This is a guy, remember, that comes down here and touches right here, follows the mechanism around and goes there. So I'm going to tighten this just slightly. I personally, when I am doing this, I always put my finger or something around so that if my screwdriver slips, it doesn't scratch into the instrument. So just be careful that you don't cause any damage that way. Just be really careful with. All right, so let's go back. I'm going to press. When I press this, in essence, I'm pressing that. It's all one mechanism. So I'm checking this. I let go. That's fine. I'll check here again. Okay, that one's still a little light. So if I turn it to the side again, if I leave this pressed down and I wiggle this, do you see that this little mechanism right here goes up and down? This right here. So the one that would affect that is this, the one across from this other one. So I'm going to tighten it just a little bit, like an eighth of a turn. Then I'm going to press this down. I'm going to check the tension again, and yay! Now we have more tension, and we have matching tension in both of them. Okay. Now I still have to go back because there's another way I have to check this same set of circumstances. So if you'll notice, when I leave this pressed down, this is my F sharp key. When I press my A key, do you see it makes this, we have a companion thing, we got a buddy system. Makes that close. And when I press my G key, oh, it makes both of them close. So I have to check that adjustment as well. So this time, instead of leaving it pressed or pressing it and then letting go when I get the paper, I'm going to press. I'm going to put the paper under here, and I'm going to leave the F sharp pressed, and I'm going to press my A key with it. And I'm checking, and it's a little light for my taste. I want it to be a little more secure. So that's with both of these pressed down. Remember, this one was for the connection here coming up. This one was for that one by itself. This one is for the connection to the A key. So I am going to tighten this one just a little. Again, I'm going to press. I'm going to put my paper under. I'm going to press, and you see how much better that is. Okay. Now I have to do the same thing for my G key and its corresponding. So I press here and it raises, and I'm going to try. That one is also a little light for my taste. So I'm going to follow this back, and it's this guy right here across from the G key. So I'm going to put my screwdriver in and slightly turn. Again, I'm going to press and hold. Slip my paper under, press and hold. Still could be a little tighter. Press and hold. Slip your paper under, press and hold. There we go. So now I have to go back and I check that both are connecting, and they are. Now, the funny thing is your G key does make this one close as well, but we don't have any fingering that does this on the top. So even, I mean, it has to close, but if it's a little lighter than the other two, you're okay, because when I press the A key down, it's going to make it tighter. See, here it is with the G key, it's a little light, but when I do it with the A and the G key, it's very tight. Okay, so it doesn't have that connection. These need to be tighter, and these need to be tighter. This one can be okay because we don't, like, again, we don't have anything that does a fork fingering on the top joint. All right, so after we've checked all these guys, then we have two more things to check down here before we can check on the suction. So we've got the A flat G sharp keys here, and when you press either one of those, you can see it makes this guy open. Okay, either one of those. All right, so I need to make sure that the tension between the two of those is balanced so that this opens and closes evenly. So I'm checking it with the one that's on the right side, and then I'm checking it again with the ones on the left side. It should match because they work off the same mechanism. Then I have to check this connection over here. So this is the one thing that I do from the middle to the top before I take it off to check for adjustments there. And this is a common misalignment right here. I may have checked this one already, so no, it's a little bit loose. So the deal is, pardon me, when I depress this key, remember it's in charge of the opening and closing of these guys. Excuse me. And if I leave this pressed, even though these are all down, there's nothing that is making sure that the A flat key, if the kid accidentally bumps, you know, they have their hand that bridges over like this. And so if their bridge right here happens to lay down and bump that key should stay closed. So on this adjustment, have them play a low D for you. And as they're playing, to sustain a low D. And as they are playing the low D, if you'll wiggle the A flat key, if it doesn't affect the sound, then it's adjusted correctly. If it does affect the sound, then the screw is not in tight enough. So again, have them play a low D for you and wiggle the screw. Wiggle the key. And it'll tell you if you need to tighten this screw to make this adjustment work. Okay. The other thing is, while they're playing a low D, you can tap on these two little keys. And if it doesn't make a difference in the sound, they're adjusted correctly. If it does make a difference in the sound, then they are not closing correctly. So you would need to recheck where you were holding this down and putting this under and checking this way, and then follow back to the screw that goes to that one. Or if you're checking the A, put the paper under, close and I'm keeping these down, and then follow that back to and it's the top screw, it's not the bottom one. That's the connection for the G key. So you need to follow the little key back, just trailways back to that. And you would need to tighten them. That's a way to check for if they're having trouble with low notes. I would recheck these, have them play the low D and sustain it, tap lightly on these, and then wiggle your A flat key up and down. If it doesn't make any difference in their sound, yes, it is adjusted correctly. If it does make a difference in their sound, you're going to need to come back and readjust something. So for me, when I put this under here and pull, this is a little loose, and you don't want it to be real tight, because if it gets too tight, then this key won't close. So, but I want a little more tension in there. And so there, the drag is a little bit better for that. Now, the last thing before I move on is I would take the top joint off, and I'm going to check for suction. So how do I do that? I'm going to close all the keys, all the three big keys. I just get my index finger wet and I screw my index finger into the bottom so that everything on the top joint is closed. Then I'm going to suck backwards on the top like I'm sucking on a straw. Do you hear that? That means it has complete suction. Okay, so that means at this point in time, I have everything on the top joint closing as it should. All right, moving on, because like I said, remember I said in the beginning, if something down here is not working, it's probably because of a culprit up here. So you need to make sure that all the gang up here is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, you're wasting your time down here. Okay, so going to the middle joint and down. Let me grab my paper and my screwdriver again. Okay, so we did check this one adjustment. So now that I checked it this way to make sure I liked that, I have to check it again so I can make sure that my F-sharp key is actually closing. So I put that under there and hold it down, because at rest it's up. And yes, it is closing. Okay, so I always do the three big keys first. Here's the E key. Oh, come on, don't give up now. There we go. That one's fine. I'm going to check the D key. And that one's fine. Now, let's talk about what happens on the front of the oboe first before we get to all the mess here on the side. So when I do the F-sharp key, things that move are, it follows the key up here, and then it opens and closes these guys up here. Okay, so if I go to my E key, next one, big one down, when I do this, it's in charge of that. Okay, so when I do my D key, it's also in charge of that. Why is this one important when that one wasn't? Because we do a forked fingering down here. So when I'm playing E or D, then my E key is responsible for that's closing. When I play forked F, my D key is responsible for it closing. So I have to check the mechanism, the adjustment off of the E key and off of the D key. And that's another fairly common, forked F is, kind of a renegade as it is. But if that's not closing, it's going to be even worse of a renegade. So I'm going to check the E key first. So we've already checked this guy because that's the D trill key that goes up to these two. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put this up because this is at rest up. I'm going to put my paper under there, and then I'm going to press my E key down, and then I'm going to pull, and it's a little light. So I'm going to turn the oboe to the side. You have 2 screws right here. The top one adjusts to the E key. The bottom one adjusts to the D key. Let me put my hand on here differently. So they're one's directly across from E and the other one's on top of that. So if I need to adjust this one with the E key, it's the top one. If I need to adjust this one, this key, with the D key, it's the bottom one. Okay, so because this is a little light, I'm going to go to the top one and just slightly screw it in. And there's never an enormous amount of twist and twist and twist. We're talking about an eighth to a quarter, even a quarter-inch turn is probably pretty big. But the deal is your students' hands are on this part of the oboe a lot, so the adjustment may come and go. Okay, so I'm going to check. There, it's a little tighter. There we go. Now, I'm going to leave my paper there because remember, it has to work off of my E key and my D key. So I'm going to put my D key down, and that one's actually a little light also. So remember, the top one is for the E key, the bottom one is for the D key. Better. And I'm doing little bitty turns. All right. There we go. Straighten all the crinkles out. So I'm always I'm judging from the E key and the D key, because if I get one in too far, I loosen the other one. They've got to be balanced. Okay. Okay, then I have to go back and check the big keys, make sure they're still closing, because if I get the screws in too far, then the big keys won't close. All right, I'm actually going to tighten each one of them just a tiny bit more. I'm sort of fanatical. Jennifer or anyone would be happy to tell you that I am. But if it's the difference between it playing and not, sign me up. So, checking on the E key, better. Checking on the D key. Okay, so I have just balanced the opening and closing of my E key to this and my D key to this. And it's, again, there's my E key, and I follow it straight across. There's the one for E, bottom one is for D. Okay, all right, so that basically at this point takes care of this part on the front of the oboe, this right here. Now I need to turn it to the side for a minute so you can see what happens over here. Okay, so the one we've kind of ignored at this point is the F key that's in between, and the right F and the left F work off, you can see, work off the same mechanism. Here's your right F, and then this little doodad that comes over the top and connects to your F key makes your F key work your right key. Okay, so they work off the same mechanism, which is this guy back here. So I just need to slip my paper under there, and pull, and it's fine. Okay, now this little mechanism right here with all of its gadgets around it, this is the forked F resonance key. So we used to not have this on the oboe, but our forked Fs were so even worse than they are now. This actually, what happens is when you play forked F, when I raise my middle finger here to do forked F, you can see it opens the key for me, so it adds a little bit more freedom to the sound of the note. But it has to be adjusted properly, because when I close it, if it is not closing all the way, then I have no low D. So the key that makes that happen is your E key. So because that's what we fork, you can see. So I'm fingering 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, and I'm picking up, I'm forking so I'm fingering 1 and 3. And then I'm going to put this under here and close the middle finger. And then I'm going to pull. Bless its heart, this one is closing correctly. But this is a common thing that is wrong, okay? Between these two and this one, and this one, you'll have 0 low notes if any of them are out. And you can even have 2 of the 3 right and 1 wrong, and you still have no low notes. So a good way to check this on your student, again, is get them to play a low D and sustain it. And as they're playing the low D, tap on this key. If it changes the sound, you need to tighten the screw. If it doesn't, you're fine. It's just like with these. You would want to have them play a low D, tap on these 2 little ones, open and close your A flat key, and then tap on this one. And if none of them change the sound, everything's adjusted correctly. If something, when you tap on it, changes the sound, you know that's the one that's wrong. Okay? Now then, having done that, so we have low C, which is here, but also we have C sharp, which does the same thing because it piggybacks off of your low C. So when I'm playing low C, this closes. When I'm playing low C sharp, this closes and this opens. Let me say it again. When I'm playing low C, this closes. When I'm playing low C sharp, because it's piggybacked here, it closes my C key, but it opens for C sharp down here. So I have to check that whole mechanism. So I'm checking low C first, pressing. Because it's a bigger pad, kind of check all over, because it's also on the curve of the oboe. You need to make sure the pad is seated correctly. Then I'm going to do that same thing again with C sharp, which this one is okay. If C closed it, but C sharp did not, the key for that, the screw for that is right here. You would need to tighten it just a little bit to make the C sharp close it as well. Okay, then I need to come down to my C sharp down here and put my paper under and let go and then pull. And this one's doing fine. Okay, so also, a lot of times this whole mechanism in here binds. I think it's the way they sit in the oboe case and then they close on them, or even just the student playing on it. Over a period of time, our E flat key gets lowered, gets pressed down. And when it gets to a certain extent of lowered, then it binds the C sharp key. So if you will very lightly, if that happens, what I mean is when I press C sharp and then I let go, that doesn't close, it stays open. Okay, that happens a lot. You're going to put your thumbs underneath the E flat key and very lightly push up and then try again. And I hold the C key down because I don't want this to work, but I hold the C key down and then I just wiggle the C sharp key and make sure it's doing what it should. Okay, then, like I said, if you need a little bit more, you just lightly press up, hold your C key down and check it again so that it frees it up. Okay, now one more thing off of this mechanism right here, because you'll notice when I press C and you're looking at the front of the oboe, it closes my E and that little key as well, and that's for tuning purposes on your high notes. So I need to check it off of that mechanism as well. So I'm going to take my low C and I'm going to put my paper under and hold. Oh, it's not closing at all. Ooh, okay. So that is this right here on top of the C key. I'm going to slightly. It'll make, if this is not closing and they're fingering high D, half hold 2, 3, 2, low C, it's still fine because your finger's closing it. But if a lot of times we'll finger high D, half hold 2, 3, and low C, and then if that's not working, then your pitch is going to be all wonky. So let me see if I got, so this is the C key connection. I'm putting this under here. It's still a little light. So I'm going to the screw that's on the C key. Put under, press. There we go. Y'all see that? Yay. And then I have to check it off of here also. And it's okay. Now, because I tightened that, I still have to go back and check my C adjustment again to make sure I didn't undo that closing and get my screw too tight, and it's all okay. All right. So now the next key down is E flat. And again, our left and right work off this almost, not really, I guess. Our right E flat comes right here, and it raises the key when I press that down. Our left E flat is a different mechanism. It crosses over and it presses on the little spring that's underneath the E flat key. When checking this adjustment for the E flat key, if it's the right E flat, it's going to be the screw right here on the top of the key. If you're checking the adjustment for the left E flat, it's going to be the screw that is on the bottom. So you need to check the adjustment for both of them. So for the right one, I'm going to, because it's at rest down, I'm going to press it and put it under. Oh my goodness. There we go. Press it and put it under, just wiggle it in there, and then pull. This guy's fine. I'm going to leave it there for right now. I'm going to press my E flat key and then let go, and they're both fine. But that one you need to check both because they work off of different mechanisms, where over here when we were checking your F, they work off the same mechanism. So, all right, so that gets us through this keys down this far. All right, so as crazy as all the adjustments have been so far, we're going to get a little crazier here. So if you're looking at the instrument, and I'll show you on two places. I'll show you on this graphic right here. This is the E flat key that opens and closes for your right and left E flat. This is the C sharp D flat key right here that opens when you depress your D flat key. On some oboes, it is just this little round head that hooks over with a metal piece, kind of like this. It's just the round head. It doesn't have the spine on it. If your oboe looks like that, then the adjustment I'm about to talk about is a no-go because you don't have this mechanism right here. If you do have this, it is called the articulated C sharp key. Now, let me show it to you on the oboe. Here is where the E flat key was, and the lower one is the C sharp key. This one does have the spine and all the doodah that goes on there, and so it is the articulated C sharp key. Why do we talk about that? Okay, so when I depress C sharp, it goes up and down, right? So the deal is, on the oboe, when we are going B to C sharp, it is traditionally fingered with your low B key and your C key. And to go to C sharp, you'd have to slide. Or if for some reason you had to go low B flat, which is also traditionally fingered this way, to D flat, you'd have to slide. As long as you have this articulated C sharp D flat key, you can adjust it so you can play B or B flat with your C sharp key instead of your C key. I'll show you that also. So here is how it is normally fingered on the picky keys for B and B flat. But as long as I adjust it, I can also finger it with B with my C sharp key and B flat with my C sharp key. So all I have to do is go B to C sharp. There's no sliding involved. Okay, the adjustment for that is right here. It's this screw that's on top of the C sharp key at the back of the spine. So what I would do is, first of all, you can have the student try to play low B this way, and if it speaks, huzzah, it is adjusted. If it doesn't, then obviously it is not. So what you would do is you're going to depress the C sharp key, and you're going to take your paper and put it under the C sharp. Leaving the C sharp pressed, press your B key, and it should hold the paper in, which it is. And you can go ahead and check it again for B flat. It should be the same thing. If it is not closing, you're going to need to screw this screw in that's at the top of there, just slightly, and check it again. So once again, the process is press your C sharp key, put your paper under the pad, press your B key down and check it. It should hold. Press your B flat and check it, and it should hold. If it's way too tight, then probably your B key isn't closing anyway, so you're going to have to loosen that screw a little bit. But here is where this is the screw that would adjust if it's not closing. Okay, so we just survived all of that stuff about the articulated C sharp key. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the set of low B natural and B flat keys. And they're even probably crazier than the other keys were. So we're talking about this B natural and B flat up here. They travel all the way down this rod. They pass this screw right here, come down to here. Then they zigzag up and down across the oboe. So the low B natural right here zigzags up, and the low B flat right here zigzags down. Now, the adjustment screws for those are a little odd to locate, shall we say. So the thing is, we're checking, just like we checked on your C key, we're checking because it's on the round of the oboe, so we're checking on the B natural first. We're checking in the front of the pad, on the side of the pad, in the back of the pad, and on the top of the pad to make sure they're closing. Then I'm going to come to the B flat key, so that was the B key. So now I'm going to come to the B flat key, do the same thing, the top of the pad, the back of the pad, the side of the pad, and the front of the pad. If those are not quite right, the pad is going to need to be reseated. That's a whole different process that is beyond this video. So now you want to come and turn the oboe this way, and you want to look at these two keys, and you're looking at the height of them. You want them to be the same height. You don't want them to be different heights, because when you press, I'm going to press the B key first, and when I press B, it closes the B key. But you can see when I press B flat, it closes B and B flat. So B has to close by itself, B flat has to close B and B flat. So I am watching the height of those keys, and I'm kind of trying to slow-mo depress, and they should hit the oboe at the same time, which these are doing a pretty darn good job of doing that. Now, let's say they don't do that. So when you check the B key, if it does not close, if when you put your paper in here and you press the low B key, once again, that's this key right here is the one that I'm doing. If I press that, and let's say my paper is really loosey-goosey and it's not holding, the key that actually affects that only is this guy that's the same one we just addressed with the articulated C sharp key. If it gets too far in, screwed too far in, this will not close. So you need to back that out slightly and check your B key again. Then, once you get your B key adjusted, you're going to have to come back and recheck your articulated C sharp key for the low B key and make sure it's still closing like it should. So for the B alone, low B alone, that is this screw that's at the back of the C sharp key. You can see when I wiggle the B key, do you see it moving right here? I mean, it moves over here as well, but that's what connects it to the B flat key. That's the B flat connector. So this right here is B key only. And that's the one that you can see if that screw is too far in, this key will not close. All right, so don't get over rambunctious when you're trying to adjust your articulated C sharp key and think, by golly, that sucker's closing now. So be real careful that you don't get it too far in, because you may fix that, but you're going to unfix this. All right, so that is your B key. So now let's wiggle your B flat key. So obviously it closes the B key because of this connection right here. All right. And then it worms its way down and it closes the B flat key because of this connection right here with the bridge key. So here's the two connectors that make your B flat key. This one closes your B key with your B flat key, and this closes your B flat key with your B flat key. All right. The screw for adjusting that is this guy back here. All right. So if I screw this screw in, let's say this is lower than my B key pad is lower than my B flat, I need to raise it. I need to screw this screw clockwise and then check the height of the key. If it's more open than this one, I need to screw it counterclockwise. I'm going to say it one more time. You look at these two, and instead of being the nice equal height that we have right here, let's say this one is lower, like that. All right. So I obviously need to adjust it where I raise it. All right, so I come to this screw over here. It's the only screw on this long rod, if that helps you out. And I screw it clockwise. And what that will do is raise the height of my beaky. If for some reason it is like this and my beaky is higher than my B flat, I come over here to the same screw and I go counterclockwise, and that will balance out the height. The one that's adjustable, interestingly enough, is the B key. You have to balance the B key with this screw right here to the height of the B flat key. Once you get that done, then these two close simultaneously when you press your B flat key. And there you go. Okay, so now that we're face to face again, let me just do a quick wrap up for you. Your student brings you the instrument. So-and-so won't play, they say. So first thing I would do is I would have them play a low D for me, or at least try to play a low D. And then you're tapping on these two little in-between keys. You're wiggling the A flat key, and you're touching your forked F resonance down here. And if any of those change the sound, you need to go directly to the screws for those and adjust them accordingly. The other thing is make sure, and you're of course checking that while the student is sustaining a low D. Always start, just as a reminder, always start at the top of the instrument and work your way down to the bottom. If there is something wrong with the bottom, it is almost always due to something on the top, because these have to close first before we get to those. So always start at the top and work your way down, even if they come to you and say, my low notes won't play. It may or may not be anything down here. You need to check up here first. So don't forget to check the suction on the top joint before you or after you do all of your adjustments up there. Make sure that you check that there's suction. You should not hear, you shouldn't hear any sort of wind, air coming through. It should be airtight as you have all the keys closed and the bottom of the joint closed. Everything else on the instrument, another thing you can do is, as they're playing the low D, if you feel like a note is cutting in and out, is you can go down the oboe and press a little harder on each one of their fingers as they're playing, and just see if that happens to make a difference in the sound. And if it does change the sound, then probably the screw that is responsible for that key is in a little bit tight and you need to back it off just a hair. So, so much of this, I don't have to tell you. There's also the reed thrown into this party. And so is the reed correct? Check that as well. Are they playing on a reed that fits them? All those things, that's another video. But we are very quick to blame it on the reed and the instrument. And so the third party in this trifecta is the kid. So make sure that the kid is doing things correctly. But that is the basic adjustment for an instrument that I've spent most of my life trying to figure out. If you have questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us, but hopefully this video will help get you where you need to go and help out your kiddos. So thanks for your time.